How are you okay being so uncomfortable when your kids bring new ideas to the table?
Well, I'm not okay this bit. And there's been numerous times I've told you kids that that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But I get outvoted you to try it. It's one of the best things that ever happens. And so, it's much easier to run a dictatorship than it is a democracy. But it, unless you are born and raised or married into a real established ranching operation or feeding operation or something, you have to think outside the box every day. So I've always been able to, well, that's what got me started and that's what keeps us going. And so we have a real unique perspective of looking at, at like every thing we do or every animal on the place. We don't care what an animal looks like and stuff. The animal's just a unit, they make profit. And if we can make profit on that little light calf by we build a real nice arena facility and stuff for holding ropings and dog trials. And if we can make the the projected profitability on that calf by having breakaway ropings or dog trials and then turn them out to grass for the summer, we just we have had to think outside the box um on every calf we buy, but every animal we buy with the intention of making a certain amount of profitability. And and we just don't buy for ourselves. We just don't buy animals and think, well, we'll just see if the market comes up or whatever. But we just don't buy cattle that the market's got to rally $10 a hundred to break even. That I think that would be kind of the industry's biggest biggest enemy, and kind of our that's kind of the thing that could hurt us most. And it's different for everybody. You get in a 60,000 head commercial feed yard, and they're better off to buy cattle that lose 10 or 15 bucks a head than they are to have $1 million worth of facilities and equipment and silage contracts and all just sit there with an empty space in the pen. So it's just different for everybody. What you got to realize, I think the biggest challenge is you can't do in your operation what everybody else does. In your operation, you have to find a niche and you have to review that. Every little family meeting, we review that. And it's always been a long time. It's a long time, sibling rivalry's been a problem for us and but we just I have a fundamental belief that you need to wake up every morning and try to make everybody around you better at what they do and and it hasn't been easy, but we're starting to get to where we think like that.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I feel you've taught us well, and I think is probably one of the reasons you've had the success, is you taught us really about how to work. And I don't say that lightly. It actually might be to the negative side now, but one of the things is you really taught us the true version of hustling and setting your mind to something and getting it done. And we talk about a generation of people that don't know how to work. And you've just really kind of said, like, I'm going to do it until it gets done. And you've raised kids who have a very similar mentality. And like I said, maybe it's not a positive, but I think in order to get in the cattle industry, you have to be willing to say, I can't go to the bar in the evenings. I'm going to miss some things. It's going to be 7 days a week. Like there's going to be some family sacrifice that on the other end of this, I should be able to get some of that. How do you teach kids to work hard? How do you have that mentality? Because one of the things we hear a lot about now is work-life balance. But when we're grinding, to have this bigger dream, and we talk about legacy a lot, right? Like my kids, our grandkids, like all these things that we want to ranch together, we're willing to sacrifice some of that work-life balance to live that dream.
Well, I think that's been one of the negatives in our, I mean, the positive deal, is that that the people involved in our operation our workers. But the negative in that is we have a different scenario of work-life balance in our, because we basically don't have any hobbies. And if we do have a hobby, we don't get it done because we work. But we actually have to be very careful here not to work too much. And when we do work, some of the profitability has to go to the workers. And, and, and that's, I got to make sure that it's not just all work. But, I'm just fortunate enough that I don't have to worry about that. I have to worry about people working too much, because you can only do this grind and stuff so much without it affecting your attitude and your ability and your sharpness to really do the right thing. So yeah, I don't know how you do that. I've been fortunate enough to have you guys around that are workers, but it's just kind of your personality. And now I have to work a little bit on making sure you get compensated enough and making sure you get enough time to do your own thing. And kind of in the slower seasons, which we don't have a real slow season, but sometimes aren't like the fall like it is now, where you can burn out pretty easy, even if you love it, and we have to be real conscious that it doesn't start to affect, like, you don't have kids yet, but affect your marriage relationship. And also, like Jacob, he's got the 2 little guys, and they come down. I mean, we build a room in the processing shed that's just for kids, with kids' toys and everything, and a little window so they can look out there and don't have to be around the kale and all the banging around. And they got their toys in there, and they got a little walkway where they can crawl up and look out the window, and they can be kind of even at, started at about 4. They're kind of part of the part of the process of getting it done. And it's not real glamorous, but it's just like, it's a very, very competitive business. And unless you're going to work hard and hustle, you better go work for somebody else, because there's not very many free lunches around here.
Absolutely. And it's one of the, best things that you've taught us is if we want to grow something to really work. And I know, my brother has to be really cautious about trying to make it home sometime for dinner. And he shows up to every T-ball game, just like you did, might be covered, but showing up and being there when it really matters. But we certainly learned from you how to really work. And I see a lot of people who have a dream, but, don't have that work ethic. And it's amazing what, when we put our mind to something and we're willing to put the miles in and put the hours in, that's part of the reason I think as a family we have had some success, is because we're definitely not afraid of hard work.